What is good, guys? Welcome back to the Your Place Next Door podcast. Today, we've got a very special guest, Dr. Carmack. So, yes, we'll get straight into this today. If you could just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, that's your camera there. Just explain a little bit what you do and what you've done so far today.
Okay, so I'm Chikima Carmack, Dr. Chikima Carmack. I am a community psychologist by training. I got my doctorate at Wichita State University, went on to complete a postdoc at Penn State. And currently, I work at the University of Houston as an assistant professor there with the health program, that is the Psychological Health and Learning Sciences Department. I have a wide variety of responsibilities, teaching, also community service, and also my research that I'm very passionate about.
Okay, yeah, so you said that like 40% of your work is research based.
Mhm.
So, what are you working on right now?
So currently, I have a program of research that involves HIV in the African American community. It's still very rampant, it's still out there. There's a lot of misconceptions about HIV and its prevention and acquiring it. So currently, what we're doing is taking the information from the community, specifically with African American heterosexual adults, and we do want to expand this to other sexual orientations. But for now, we're starting with that group, and what we want to do is see what's out there, see what the myths are, see what the knowledge is, see where they stand in terms of prevention, condom use, refraining from multiple sexual concurrent partners, that type of thing. What we're going to do with this information, that's phase one. So, phase two, what we're going to do with this information is turn them into podcasts and put them out there for the community to see if that actually has an impact
Mhm.
on your decision to use a condom and especially get HIV tested so you know your status. It's empowerment. So we're really big on that.
Cool.
And I have a huge team that works with me, a lot of mentors, other professors, graduate students. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Awesome. Right. So yeah, you work around a lot of students, and you work with a lot of students, obviously. Now we want to talk about that mental health. Like,
Yes.
how would you say mental health affects students?
So mental health affects students in a lot of ways. If we're talking about college students, and we can talk about adolescents as well, some experts believe that adolescence goes well into age 26 or 27, right? So we're basically talking about young adults here,
Yeah.
emerging adults and young adults. That college age, you're in college, and college is kind of a time for self discovery, self awareness. You're responsible for yourself now. There's a lot of things to balance. You have to balance academics because that's why you're there on the campus. You have to balance relationships without your parents. Um, Intimate relationships, friendships, and just learning how to balance your different responsibilities going into adulthood. You're not answerable to anyone but yourself at this point. Most college students are about 17 or 18 when they get to college. 18 is the legal age. You are legally responsible for yourself. So that's a lot to deal with, coming from being under the dependency of your parents, being under the immediate support of your parents. So one thing we find with college students is kind of this shock. And so mental health services on campuses like to buffer that, provide a shock absorbance,
Mhm.
because for some students it is a lot to deal with. um, so, mental health affects students on campuses through low academic achievement. We all know about depression. Anxiety is huge when it comes to students because, all those things that I just mentioned, those responsibilities, that's pressure, that's mental pressure. And grown adults go through mental pressure all the time, but we've learned what to do with it. Not knowing how to consolidate that for yourself, not knowing where to go, who to turn to, that can lead to loneliness, anxiety,
Mhm.
depression, failing grades, because usually that's the reason you're there in the first place, and the goal will not be accomplished with failing grades, right? So it affects students in many ways.
And you were saying mental health services. Like, what kind of facilities and services are available in schools for
So on campuses, the
students?
Health and Wellness Center, most universities or colleges, even community colleges, have mental health facility or a health facility. We'll just say a health facility. But under that umbrella of a health facility, there should be professionals there that are able to talk to you if you need that kind of assistance, counselors, psychotherapists, different professionals in psychology and in, life development and counseling
Uh,
that can help you with those
And as
things.
far as you're aware, do those services get utilized well, or like I understand, like been through like mental illnesses before and stuff like that. That reaching out and getting assistance is probably the most difficult part. So
Absolutely.
do you think they get utilized well, and there's enough like outreach to like open hands sort of thing?
So absolutely not.
Mhm.
Absolutely not. And part of it is you spoke on two very good sides of the same coin. Part of it is we still have a stigma of mental health. I cannot believe it's 2022. We're going on 2023,
Yeah,
right? We still have a stigma of mental health, that something's wrong with you, that you're crazy, that, oh, you just can't handle, you're not good as someone else who seemingly seems to have it all together.
mm,
So that is one problem. Students may not know they are suffering mental health. They just figure it's hard. Adolescence is hard too, right? You
yeah,
went through changes. You went through biological changes that affected your behavior, that affected brain chemistry. You start to get a little more responsibility. In adolescence, you start to understand the gravitas of being a well adjusted adult. And when that doesn't happen your freshman year, your sophomore year, something intervenes into that to kind of, things seem to fall apart. You think that this is just what life is, this is just how it should be, and that's not necessarily the case. It's always good to talk to someone. So that's one side of it. Students don't think that there's a problem. They're getting ragged on from their peers and their friends, and just get it together.
yeah,
It's not that simple for some people. For a lot of people, actually, um, mental health affects about 1 out of 5 early adolescents. So you think about it in high school when you went to your prom or whatnot. It could have been a group of you, maybe a group of 5 or a group of 10. 2 people probably had some
suffering.
kind of mental illness, and then as you veer off into adulthood and that early emergent adulthood and college, it turns a little closer, excuse me, it turns a little closer to 1 and 2, about 40%. So that's precisely about 1 and 4. About 40% of college students suffer mental illness, about 50% of the entire population.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So out of, 4 or 5 of us in this room, 2 may have suffered mental illness, whether they knew it or not. And these stats come from who has been legitly diagnosed, right? What about all the people
Undiagnosed.
that have not
Mm.
been exactly
Mhm.
undiagnosed?
And to add on to what you were saying earlier, how there's still a stigma. I remember doing research on how a lot of like the medical field itself don't like view mental health issues or mental health disparities as an actual legitimate illness, and a lot of our fundings do not go into
Absolutely.
this research, especially during COVID-19, during the whole pandemic. We actually cut funding for like mental health research and whatnot, just so we can focus on other aspects of like our health and other medical like advancements as well. And another question I would like to like bring forward was, you mentioned how like a lot of students feel pressured and feel like different type of burdens, especially just entering college and whatnot.
Yeah.
But what may be like other issues that can cause them to go into like a mental health of like despair or feeling like a little bit of anxious or depression?
Hmm. So, just navigating relationships.
Mhm.
Relationships are hard to navigate on your own, especially those college years. You start to explore yourself sexually with other people, with
Mhm.
other persons. That's quite messy in the head of adolescents. Understanding that the brain isn't fully developed in the sense that we consider a personality until about 30 years old, right? You're well out of college, could be in a lucrative job by then, and your personality is still
Yeah,
developing.
100%.
So, other things that can affect students in different ways, past history, what kind of home you came from versus what kind of environment the school is providing, abusive homes or violence in the home or, God forbid, sexual abuse, those kind of things. When they happen in a point in time, and whether they happen in your childhood or your adolescence, that point in time they happened, and let's just, for hypothetical sake, say you got over it. You got over it, you went on with life. Well, certain traumas that happen early in life can affect later life. You
Mhm.
could see no advancement, no progress to it, and then various triggers come along, and this has to do with the way your organism, the body itself and the mind itself, interacts with the environment. You never know what a trigger is. Past history, parents, if 50% of the population suffers from depression at one point of their life, seriously diagnosable depression, maybe not severe depression, but diagnosable depression, if 50% of the population suffers from that, then there's a 50-50 chance that it runs in your family, and you may not even know that. A lot of students get older, they empower themselves with knowledge. A lot of people empower themselves with knowledge, and they realize, oh, my mom did have that, or my dad really did have that. Nobody knew, everyone just thought XYZ about the behavior, but not understanding that there could have been a chemical imbalance, and those chemical imbalances do get passed through the genome.
And
Yeah, go on.
oh,
Go on.
and I know there's like some stigma or some belief that people, well, from what I've like my experiences with other individuals and talking to my peers and whatnot, they sometimes believe like therapy or like going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist doesn't really work for them because they feel like they are untreatable. But is that truly the case though?
That is not truly the case. So, I would say for any students out there, any college students, just try it out. Just try it out. And therapy and therapists are kind of like gloves. You got to find the right fit, right? So if the first one doesn't meet your needs, is not making you feel appreciated or heard, or even the symptoms are not getting better, you may need to try another professional. You get the run of the mill of who your kid's pediatrician is going to be, or who your own primary care physician is going to be. You should get the run of the mill of who your therapist would be. You should be able to choose and to switch. And one thing about that you mentioned, Jeff, a lot of students believe that they can just do it themselves. They can figure it out themselves, that all I have to do is try. And I think as a society, we put a little too much pressure on the individual to always be an individual. We are here, we need each other. We need each other to the point where we need every living thing on this planet to cooperate with every other living thing on this planet. But when it comes to feeling so sad that you can't get out of bed, feeling so sad that your vision changes, you just think, well, there's something wrong with me, I need to go into me. Well, no, people can help you with that. Professionals can help you with that, and it's a matter of trying it out. Just try it out.
I think that with therapy, even I've considered therapy like these days. The reason why it's you have someone who's trained to not judge you, but like see you. So it's like you can get a better understanding of yourself, even if you're not, like have any kind of illness. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like you can have somebody trained, and then you can get a better idea of who you are, and like these kind of things.
And then a good aspect on that is people who know you in your past, whether it's way past, far past, or just recent past, they get to know you. They ascribe characteristics to you. You're the happy one.
Yeah.
You're the cheerful one.
Yeah.
You may be the Debbie Downer, but we've ascribed these different characteristics to people. And so if you're my friend and I come to you for advice, you're seeing me through the lens of all these prescriptions you have already ascribed to me. A professional, psychology professional, psychologist, counselor, therapist, they are trained to be your stranger and see you from the outside
Exactly.
within and to
Exactly.
go within.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I did a podcast with one guy, and he was saying like, when you're in it, you can't see. Like an outside perspective, it's like a coach. That's the analogy he used. Was if you're on the field and you're playing football, you can't see, or you should pass to him, but the coach can see from the outside, saying like, "Hey, make a wide pass," because he can see the full picture. Do you know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Absolutely.
So yeah, it makes sense in that way.
I see that in terms of a tornado as well.
Yeah.
When you're in the eye of the tornado, you may be able to perceive that, wind is passing around you, and you may be able to look up and see the opening of the light. But whether it's a big tornado or a small tornado,
Outside.
somebody on the outside is able to give that metric a little better than you yourself. So
As time progressed, there's new development for medicine and like tests as well. And nowadays, I believe there's something called telemedication or telemedicine. What are your thoughts on how it might affect the futures of psychologist development as well as mental health disparities that students or even just adults to even high schoolers may be able to use?
So telemedicine and teletherapy is a very wonderful advancement. It has to do with reach. So in this profession of mental health, we realized that when I quote you that 50% of the population may suffer some mental health illness, that's off of who is diagnosed. Then we have those undiagnosed that we talked about. But telemedicine is able to give reach to that. You may be in a rural area where the closest counselor or certified psychologist or the one that you need, because we have all kinds of specialties, right? The one that you need may be 20 miles away, and that's not really doable for your lifestyle. Telemedicine, with the advent of cell phones, about 80% of the American population owns a cell phone, a smartphone at that. So it gives reach, it gives accessibility to professionals, so that is a good thing. um, I personally believe that nothing kind of compares to one-on-one, face-to-face. There is energy vibration between two people in the same room. However, if that's not doable, what is the bottom line? Our bottom line is to get you help, to get you safe, to get you healthy, to get your well-being up to par. So telemedicine is a great advent.
And tying back to how we were talking about the outside perspective of things, what are like some early indicators or some signs that some individuals may be able to tell that someone they know or one of their loved ones are probably suffering or being silent about their mental issues or mental health?
So it starts with withdrawal. Withdrawal is probably the first indicator, because people with mental health issues, as I said, you go within. And going within mentally as well as going within physically. So you want to be by yourself. You don't want to be uplifted. So I would say that withdrawal is one of the first and foremost symptoms. Now, if you're on the college campus with a group of friends, and you're just tired, you've had a string of papers and you just don't want to go out, and maybe for the next 3 events you're invited to, you're just not feeling it. That's a different thing. But withdrawing to the point where people don't know what's going on. I haven't heard from him. I don't know what he's up to. I can't tell you. He's just changed. When you feel like someone is changing without reason. Now, if you change because I'm in this group and I kind of want to get out of that association and go into somewhere else, well, I can see why you changed. Yeah, you changed on me, but it was for a reason, because you wanted to go do something else. But a change is in, he's just not the same. He's kind of down all the time. There is a phenomenon called blunt effects, and blunt effect is pretty much where you're just unfazed by anything. College is a time of stimulation. You should be out there. You should be having fun. It should
Mm.
be a good time. You should be making mistakes. You should enjoy making those mistakes. You don't enjoy the consequences of those mistakes as much, but you use it as learning to be a well-adjusted adult. But in a lot of situations, you'll see that the student may withdraw. You'll see that the student is not very stimulated by anything. Drugs and alcohol, of course, because that's what we call self medication. When you don't want to feel like yourself, you just rather feel like something else. Being inebriated brings out different aspects and highlights different aspects of people personality. So it's different for you to feel that way. Drugs do the same thing. You want to feel something different because you don't want to feel what you feel now. That's another one. And of course, failing grades. Once your grades start to drop, there could be all kinds of reasons. You could be on a party campus and you're just partying too much, slow that
Yeah.
down. But friends on the outside looking in, I would say those are the 3 or 4 major symptoms: withdrawal, not being stimulated by anything. We call that blunt effect, and also failing grades and maybe drugs and alcohol.
Mhm. So yeah, so in terms of like environment, like how would you say that affects mental health? Because I'm a true believer that this thing has caused a lot of problems for a lot of people. Technology, information, all that kind of stuff. It's
Uh-huh.
just like constantly just filled with new stuff, and
Mhm.
it's such a fast paced
It is very
life right now.
fast.
You know what I mean?
Very
But
fast.
yeah, so in terms of environment, like how do you think that affects people?
So environment, it definitely affects people. Part of my work as a community psychologist is to notice, respect, and understand how the environment actually affects someone's decision to do something. So when we talk about environment, we can talk about the inner environment, and we can also talk about the outer environment. Keeping yourself physically healthy
Hmm.
is a good way to keep the inner environment good. There are certain times where physical ailments can cause mental stress and turn into mental illness. There are times where a pre-existing mental illness can start to wear on the body physically. So this mind body connection is a connection. It is a real connection. We have science to prove that connection. So, keeping the inner environment, the inner body well and pleased and hydrated, and sleep is a very very good thing. People may not realize, but your body does the majority of its repair of cells in your sleep, and you have to go through so many cycles of that REM to actually get those benefits. So, good sleep would be a good environment. Also, just the campus that you're on. It's good to do those campus walks to actually see what the campus is like, to see if you can feel yourself fitting into this. So, picking the right environment is very crucial to your mental health, and I know that from personal experience.
A
So,
lot of students, I believe, want to rush into recovery because a lot of times, a lot of individuals feel like they're fighting against time. But what do you feel about like rushing a recovery, or do you feel like a person should really take their time to like actually truly
mhm.
feel better before they get back out there into the world?
So that is a complicated question. Actually, it seems pretty simple, but it's not that simple when we're talking about behavior because so many other
Yes.
factors can come in. A little bit of both can help synergize one another.
Mm-hmm.
You know that you are really depressed, and you're doing behavioral therapy for it. You may even be on a medication regimen for it, um, and you just don't want to go out. But making yourself go out may increase some of those good feelings, some of those chemicals in your brain that need social interaction, that need to laugh sometimes, that needs to see other things are out there. So I think a little bit of both would help one another. Taking your time to actually recover and not pressuring yourself. One thing about adolescence, emergent adulthood, and young adulthood, everything seems so dire, right? Everything seems so heavy right now. And even in my adulthood, I can tell you that something that may stress me out, an acute situation that may stress me out, I feel like a different person after a good night's sleep. Literally, that's all. That is it, you know? So you're about to fail a class or you failed your final exam and it feels really bad and it feels really dire and oh my gosh, I didn't pass this class that I needed to graduate. And now it feels like your world's falling apart and you're so sad. Understand grown I would say older adults now understand that the list will never stop, right? So there will always be something and there will always be adjustments along the way. And those of us who thrive learn how to adjust well to the differences that come up. So
Yeah. So, what's your thoughts on like prescribed medicine for mental health? Like, I don't. I think that we're biological beings,
hmm
and adding a chemical
hmm
to something like I know some like so. There's a few different things here. One is like a mental how to say, like there's a mental illness where it's like you have like actual biological like chemical imbalances,
hmm
and then something like depression. Like I'm not a doctor, but from my experience and understanding, like I would probably lean towards more of the exercise, sleep better, maybe less absorption of something like technology or something,
hmm
um, and better diet and stuff like that. That's which way I would lean towards.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on like the medicine? Like, I'll give you another example. I was prescribed blood pressure tablets
hmm
a few months back, and I was taking them, and I thought my body will get dependent on it. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, no, let me just stop that. Maybe reduce smoking a little bit, eat a little better, work out a little bit more, and it's reduced.
hmm
And I was only on it for like a week, and I was just like, no, I don't want to get dependent.
hmm
Do you think that's the same thing with like mental health medicine?
So, not quite. There are a lot of individual differences when it comes to mental health because we are talking about actual chemicals in the brain.
Uh-huh.
When you feel happy, that's a chemical in the brain. When you're laughing, that's a different chemical in the brain. When you're sad about something, when you're regretful, we can run the gamut of 50 different emotions, and there is a different chemical soup in your brain making up those emotions. So, a licensed professional therapist, psychotherapist, or psychologist, or psychiatrist would be able to know whether you meet the threshold of a chemical imbalance. So it is really, really different for everyone. Now, all those behavioral changes you mentioned are excellent. Those behavioral changes are excellent for a healthy individual, right? So they would definitely be beneficial to someone who may be going through a mental ailment. But the chemical soup of what goes on in your brain when an emotion occurs, um, you can help some of that out with those behavioral actions. You can definitely help some of that out. But depending on how long it's been going on, how long you've been in this particular state, there may be instances where the chemical soup is now kind of, for lack of other phrase, can't get back to where it needs to be
Yeah, I agree.
just with your own intervention.
I
You
agree.
may need medicine
Like the
intervention.
severity of the
The
situation.
severity of it, yes, and the thing is, a lot of these drugs, they get a bad rap for a good reason, right? Greedy pharmaceutical companies,
Yeah.
those type of things. We all know that happens. But a lot of the drugs that work on mental health, they're actually either inhibiting or giving you more of the chemicals, the neurotransmitters in your brain, these chemicals, this chemical soup I'm talking about, those are neurotransmitters. They are actually impeding on them in your brain. So it's not necessarily that this drug is putting an additional chemical in your body, because some of those chemicals that you don't need, the body is very complex, right? It's a machine. Your liver filters those out. You sweat it out, you excrete it out, those kind of things. You may urinate it out. The chemicals you don't need, your body kind of knows how to get rid of. The chemicals you do need, they work on perhaps closing the gateway of that chemical that makes you sad, for instance. And I'm putting this very, very elementary, right? But a lot of the drugs don't make you dependent in the sense that you will need that drug. A lot of these drugs, you do have to wean yourself off of it under a professional, because your body doesn't want to just stop it all. It's used to this pathway. Every behavior you have, every emotion you have, every single thing that me doing this, every single thing that your body does, there is a electrical pathway going on in your brain. And the more you do that behavior, the easier that electrical pathway is called upon. That's why we can walk so well. Once you learn to walk at 1 or 2, you've been doing it all your life. It comes without thought, because that pathway knows how to activate itself automatically now. Same thing happens with our other behaviors, whether it's drugs and alcohol, whether it's being sad, whether it's having these, ideas of worthlessness, or just not doing and deciding not to go out with friends and have a social time. Every time you do something, a chemical pathway, electrical pathway is stimulated, and it's more easy to activate that pathway again. So once you get into that cycle, that's where mental health comes in, and that's where you may need either behavioral intervention or medicine intervention, but a licensed professional would be able to guide you through that.
There's also some aspects in physical health that mental health and mental illnesses can cause. What are some of the examples that depression or anxiety or some mental health issues can cause on a physical body?
So I would start with anxiety. Anxiety is probably the one that sticks out in my head the most, because especially due to society, due to our phones, due to all this excess of knowledge, FOMO, the fear of missing out, that kind of thing. Constantly checking Facebook for likes, wanting that outside validation. Those things bring about anxiety, and anxiety is worry. And so that's an emotion, right? Anxiety. It produces its own set of chemicals. One of the famous chemicals of stress and anxiety is cortisol, and we learned a lot about cortisol this semester in our health disparities class. And that's a chemical it's needed for survival. It's used for immediate use. You need to immediately use it. When I'm in the car and something ahead of me happens, an accident or something, that cortisol says, act fast. What are you going to do? You're going to slam on the brakes. You're going to self-correct. You're going to whatever. That chemical is there to help you get over an actual acute incident. However, when that chemical stays in the blood for too long, because you're still under stress, the actual threat is gone, but your body is still under stress because you have bills. How am I going to pay for the next semester? I'm failing this class. This is too much work. I can't understand what the professor is saying. My boyfriend won't call me back. My girlfriend just went off without me. Those kind of things. My friends are getting upset. When your body is under this kind of constant stress, that chemical actually wears down the organs. It actually wears down the organs. And, that just kind of speaks for itself, right? Also, things like overeating or undereating that's a mental condition that's actually affecting your physical body. Self-medicating, taking drugs to feel better, that's actually affecting your body, and that can cause chemical addiction. We all know, right? So yeah,
How can you reduce cortisol? You said
cortisol.
how do you
Yes.
reduce that?
So there are different stress techniques, breathing,
So it's based around
exercise.
stress.
Yes,
Okay.
it's definitely based around stress. The stress is actually coined as the stress hormone. It is
Okay. So
the
they say
stress
stress
hormone.
is the biggest killer.
And it
It
is.
really
It
is.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it is. And we're finding it comes from all different places. Discrimination, just being a person of color. It can come from a lot of different just lifestyle choices. And to actually get rid of it, you would need to the threat would have to be gone. You would have to kind of assess that there is no threat. But what happens when you can't see outside of a threat? Because I'm not going to graduate and my family has already bought plane tickets,
Mm.
and just the on top of everything else. I'm not saying that any one of these acute situations would cause something like that, but let's be honest, no one is dealing with one little situation of anything. If we were given the opportunity, we can list 12 different problems we have right now. Now, on the other side, a therapist would help you realize, just like you can list 12 different problems you have, you can list 50 different things you're grateful for, even in the midst of those 12 problems. So, a lot of times mental health is about perspective, and like you said, an outside person is able to show you a better perspective, that we're all not living like this. When you're going through something, you think it's you,
Yeah.
because that's what it feels. You can only feel you, but it's half the population, so we're all in this together.
Okay. So, when would you know that you would seek help? Like, what are good like signs for one to decide? Oh, I should seek help now.
So that is a very personal decision, because I am a preventionist, so I like to prevent things. So
Yeah.
if I see a problem early,
Prevention is better
I
than the
want
cure.
very, very much so, very much so. I want to fix it early. However, students, adolescents, young adults may not understand that that is a problem. Goes back to those failing grades if we're talking about the college population, because that's why you're there. Also, not getting out of bed. So you have the choice not to get out of bed. You can take yourself a mental health day, and that's another good prevention strategy. I believe students shouldn't feel so much pressure for work and should be able to take a mental health day. I believe in most of my classes, you can miss 2 classes and nothing, you can do a little makeup work and nothing will be changed, because mental health days are real. If you find yourself taking too many mental health days, such that there is no sympathy for your absence anymore,
Mm.
that would probably be a problem. If you are having erratic relationships, that's another big one for college students. Friends, you just keep blowing up back and forth with friends, or back and forth with boyfriends and girlfriends, and that type of thing. When it feels, I say it's very personal, because when it feels too heavy to handle, if you can say, this feels too heavy, this feels so heavy, I don't want to move, I don't want to do anything. Once you start those I don'ts, go talk to somebody. And what's the worst that can happen? The therapist can tell you, okay, this is normal. Yeah, what I want you to do is go buy a planner and start planning things out and checking things off your list. They can give you some organizational skills, because guess what? This is normal. Or they could say, well, talk to me a little bit more. Where does this come from? You can tell them about your history, some things that may be influencing what's happening now. So yeah, I would say when you start getting into those, I don't even care. I don't want to get out of bed. It doesn't matter, whatever. When you start hearing that a lot from your friends, or you start saying that a lot to yourself, and you're sitting there alone and it feels heavy, just go talk to someone, because what's the best that can happen is they say this is normal. There is no worst that can happen, because they can also help you if it's gone out of that realm of normalcy.
And the mental health days you were talking about, like the time off, is that a policy or is that just like kind of we understand sort of thing?
So, no, that is not a policy, and it should be. Some places it is. So,
I-
so I'm not going to say some places
Yeah,
do
I
give
read
you.
in once. I think it was Detroit or something.
They have like a 3 leave day
Yeah,
for students and workers, so they can have like
Oh, that is
a mental
wonderful.
health day
They
for
have three
themselves.
like absences that's related to mental health days. You know, in like a year or a semester or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But so
That is
it's a new policy
wonderful.
that was brought in. I think it was
Recent, like,
late last year. I think it
yeah.
was.
Yes, that is definitely wonderful. I know some professions do have that in place. The majority don't. So it's very lucky and blessed and grateful if you do have that option, because it's needed. You have sick days, but what's sick? A virus invading my body may be the same as my chemical soup is off today, and I need to do some things to get it back. Just relaxing sometimes. The body can't just keep going. You have to rejuvenate.
Do you think mental health as a whole? Do you think it's like growing in numbers per like the population, or do you think that because we have access to more information, it's just more of it's coming to light? Do you think that like the whole population as a whole has been dealing with this for the longest of time and is coming to light, or do you think it's actually like affecting more people as time progresses?
I do believe the latter. I believe it has affected all people. I know we have all these technological advents and that type of thing. Now, depression has gone up, and that has been linked to social media use in middle school and high school students, because, as I said, the brain is still in active development and consolidating how you feel and comparing yourself to everyone else. That can bring a lot of depression. So, social media use among those earlier ages has been linked to more depression. But when you hit the adulthood range, I believe we just have more access to it. People are talking about it more. People are understanding that it's normal. We're in that age of be a better person and pick your plight. We have all kinds of plights, all kinds of injustices happening that we're able to see now, we're able to record. So I believe it's just coming to light a little more. And frankly, I'm grateful for that. That's a good thing. Yeah.
I also feel like it's also a generation type thing where certain generations tend to believe like to find treatment for their mental health issues. As I coming from an immigrant family myself, like I know my dad personally struggles with like trying to overcome his own mental health issues and not wanting to find treatment for it because he has a stigma where it's not gonna work. Versus if you were to ask someone from this generation, they're a little bit more willing to find solutions for their issues and their mental health. Wrapping it all up, like bringing it back to how our chemical soup and everything plays a huge role in what we think and our mindset and our emotions. I remember reading an article how our mind tends to build off of negativity and it tends to stem and remember negative events more often than our happy events. What are some ways that one can like conquer those like negative events or conquer those negative thoughts and feel a little bit better about themselves?
That is an excellent question. That's a very excellent observation. So what you said is true. You are more likely to remember a negative event than a positive event. You've heard people say, I always, it's never, there's very few things in this world that are always. However, it feels like always, because those things are more impactful, and that stems from us wanting to protect ourselves. We are a self procreating, self protecting species. And the reason that happens is in order to protect yourself from it happening again, your brain has through the, ecology of man, your brain has developed a sense for that to stand out so that it won't happen again, so that you want to remember it, so that the snake with the red, you got bit, it hurt, bad things happen, you're gonna definitely remember that one so that it won't happen again, right? So some ways to combat that: there are skills, there are techniques that professional therapists and counselors can walk you through, but just on your own, gratitude is one of the biggest game changers that we have been given, that we're starting to understand a lot more about. There is a field of psychology specifically called positive psychology. Now, there's no field of psychology called negative psychology. That's already in us, right? But there is a specific field of psychology denoted as positive psychology. And you would be amazed at how being grateful just in the morning, if you have any kind of religiosity or spirituality, or you don't have to have those labels for it, but just appreciating that you're here, appreciating. I believe me and my son one day just realized, water flows from about 18 holes in my house. That's just, some people don't even have that luxury of clean water every day. And here we are living in a place where it comes out of 18 different places right in this, little square footage. So just being grateful for things, being grateful that you have friends, even if it's that one. All you need is one good one. All you need is one good one. Being grateful that you have people that care, parents that care. Just, we can sit here among the five of us and list 1,000 things, 1,000 different things that we are grateful for, and keeping your mind focused on those things, even when it wants to go back to the negative thing. Well, no, but, and push it back. And this technique takes a while. It takes a while to do, because you're going to keep going back to the negative thing.
It's a skill.
It's a skill. It is a skill.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, the stronger it gets. I promise. The more you do it, the stronger it gets. Also, letting go of failures, letting go of things that were the old you, because the old you was yesterday. The old you was 5 minutes before we started the show. You can let that go and continue with, what do I want to be right now? What do I want to be right now that's going to help me be even better tomorrow? So different little things that you can do. I would say keep a gratitude journal. I've started my children, well, they're not toddlers, they're kids, but a gratitude journal. Just, what are you thankful for today? And of course, my 10-year-old son, he's thankful for video games every day. So he doesn't get to play them every day, but every day he's thankful that he will have the opportunity to one day soon play video games again. If that's what gets you through it, then that's what you focus on. That's what you be grateful for. And writing it down makes it real. So that's one definite thing, keeping a gratitude journal, or just, doesn't even have to be anything formal. You could just be feeling down, and I grab my pen and just write 5 things I'm kind of happy for right now. And that gets my mind, once you're thinking about this, you can't think about this and that at the same time. So
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking when he was talking. It was a good thought comes from the same place as a bad thought comes from.
absolutely.
So that's, you got to keep that in your mind, and you got to talk to
I like that.
Got to talk to yourself a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. Self-talk. Oh,
Yeah.
that's excellent. Yeah. Self-talk. You'd be amazed at how many bad things people say about themselves in a given time. You could be amazed if you actually paid attention to all the bad things you say about yourself every day that nobody else sees. Nobody else may even perceive it. It could be just something within you. But getting that negative voice out of your head, saying good things about yourself, because you have evidence of all these good things about yourself. Why not focus on them? And the more you do that, self-talk, the easier it gets to put out the voice of worthlessness, I call it. Yeah. Because you're not. No one is.
Jeff. All right. So what else we got? Okay. So let's last one. What do you think are some like actionable steps that you can take to really give yourself like that good start in terms of conquering these mental issues?
So that would depend on development. What age of development are we talking about here? Are we
So
talking about the college
yeah,
around
yeah.
about when you get on your own? So some things to set yourself up for success. I would say go into the college experience organized. Now, coming from someone who's well out of college over 20 years, um, you'll learn that even the best plans have to be tweaked or changed mid course, that type of thing. But just going into it with a plan of how you want this to be. Visualization is a very powerful tool. Positive psychology has done the science, has the actual facts to back it up. Visualization. Visualize yourself passing that exam. Visualize yourself on campus. Just make a commercial in your mind. When we see those commercials, everyone is
Yeah.
happy, everyone is on the lawn, everyone is having a good time. You're in class, you're studying, you get the paper back, it has an A+ on it. Well, now we do everything online, right? So you go check, you go check your class grades, and yeah, you got a good score now. And just visualize those things ahead of time. That's one. That's one thing you can do for yourself. That's kind of a self journey type thing. Another one is to go in with a support system. And if you do not have a support system, make it a mission on that welcome week to get one, even if it changes, because we've only known each other a couple of days, but I kind of like you, you kind of like me. Let's go to lunch together. What are you doing? Are you going to this later? That type of thing. So having a good support system there in college. If you're fortunate enough to have parents that care about you, staying in touch because you're away from home, that homesickness will happen. I remember it happened for me, and I'm probably the most independent person out the womb that you could think of. But even then, just being away from that environment, even though I was ready to be away from that environment, still actually living in it, you want to have that connection to those good things of who you were, i.e., family. So having family still there. But I would say those are the three major things. Number one, plan and set yourself up for success, which includes visualization and organization. Number two would be find a support group, find some friends, find a clique that you're happy with, that does something good for you, you do something good for them, that type of thing. We should have friends, in my opinion, we should have friends that reflect the best qualities of ourselves as well as qualities we want to grow in. And if this goes reciprocal for both people in that dynamic, then we're molding two wonderful people, wonderful adults for the future. So support group, they're on campus physically. And you do that by just getting out there. It's scared. Everybody's scared. The thing is, when you're scared, nobody knows you're scared. I could be trembling in my boots right now, but nobody knows it. So just do it. Just go out there and do it. And then number three, like I said, if you're fortunate to have good support from the previous life, back home, to keep in contact with that.
Well, like Dr. Carmack said, stay positive, stay happy,
Absolutely.
Get some help if you need to.
Absolutely.
This is Your Place Next Door with
Sharif, as always, thank you for coming down. It's been great.
Oh, thank you very much for
appreciate it.
having me, guys.
Awesome.
This is
And
great.
like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one.
We'll link everything in our bio below, our contact information, as well as Dr. Carmack. If you have any further questions or would like to see a little bit about her research and what she does.
Absolutely.
And like we said, Your Place Next Door.